As there is a rhythm beneath the silence, a sacred thread that binds the stars to the soil and the soul to the storm. Life does not unfold in straight lines or clear verses. It sings in minor keys, in pauses and crescendos, in brokenness that is not defeat but design. We are not drifting fragments, we are notes in a divine composition. Each sorrow a shadow that gives shape to light, each detour a doorway to deeper knowing. When the winds rise and the path disappears beneath our feet, it is not abandonment, it is invitation. For even the silence speaks if we learn to listen. The moments that feel empty are often where eternity leans in the closest. You were not cast into chaos, you were planted in purpose. Sown into this time, into this place, for a reason beyond what the eye can see, and in the music of the eternal, nothing, no wound, no whisper is ever wasted. There are moments in life when everything seems to come undone. The road you were walking vanishes beneath your feet, and what once felt certain suddenly dissolves into silence. You pray, you plead, you press forward, and yet heaven seems quiet. The door doesn't open. The answer doesn't come. The light doesn't break through the clouds. It's easy in those moments to believe that chaos has the final word, that maybe life really is just random, stitched together by chance and held by fragile threads. But I believe with all my heart that even when we can't see it, there is a sacred thread running through every moment, binding our joy and our sorrow, our questions and our quiet nights into something whole, something holy. You see, we've been taught to look for meaning in movement. We feel alive when things are happening, when prayers are answered, when dreams are unfolded. But what if the most divine work is being done in the places where nothing seems to be happening? What if the silence is not absence, but arrangement? All throughout creation, God speaks in rhythm. The tide doesn't rush, the moon doesn't rise early, and seeds don't bloom the moment they're planted. There is a divine order, and it always includes a season of waiting, a season where roots grow deep before the flower ever breaks through the surface. And so often it's in the quiet corners of our lives that something far greater than we could imagine is being prepared. You may be walking through a season right now where you feel invisible, forgotten, broken down by disappointment or delay. But let me remind you of this. You are not lost in the shuffle. You are being woven into a story so much larger than your current chapter. The hands that set the stars in motion haven't let go of you, not even for a moment. We tend to measure our lives by milestones, but heaven measures by depth. While we look for outcomes, God looks for roots. And when we don't see progress on the surface, it doesn't mean nothing is happening. It may mean something deeper is taking shape, something eternal, something necessary. There's a passage that speaks of being still and knowing, not running and knowing. Stillness itself can be sacred ground. It's where we stop striving long enough to hear the whisper that was always there. You are not alone, you are not unseen, you are not forgotten. And isn't it something that some of the most beautiful symphonies have moments of pure silence? Not because the music has ended, but because the silence makes the next note more powerful. What feels like a pause in your life may be the divine setting of the stage for what's to come. The silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with meaning. So when the way forward isn't clear and the answers don't come and all you hear is stillness, don't despair. Don't give up. Look deeper. Listen closer. That thread is still there and it's holding you more firmly than you know. You may not feel it, but it is weaving together every unanswered prayer, every long night, every tear you've cried into something that will one day make you say, "Now I see. Now I understand." Because the chaos you feared was not chaos at all. It was the quiet choreography of grace. Some of the most sacred things we carry can't be seen with the eyes. They're not medals or milestones. They're not framed certificates or shining trophies. They're the invisible scars etched into the soul, quiet reminders of the places we've been, the battles we've faced, and the strength we didn't know we had until we were called to use it. We all carry them. Some are born from heartbreak, others from disappointment, betrayal, sickness, loss. Life has a way of leaving its mark on all of us. And in a world that tells us to be strong, to keep smiling, to move on quickly, it's easy to start thinking that pain is something we should hide, or worse, something we should be ashamed of. But let me tell you, the presence of pain is not the absence of purpose. Your scars do not disqualify you from meaning, they reveal it. You see, when we look at the story of our lives, it's tempting to skip over the chapters we wish had never been written, the moments we'd rather forget, the nights we cried ourselves to sleep, the mornings we woke up with a weight we didn't think we could carry one more day. But if we believe in a God who redeems, then we must also believe that He does not waste. Not even our pain. The wound may have been deep, but so was the growth. The loss may have been real, but so was the love that preceded it. And though we would never ask for suffering, we can begin to see it differently when we realize it shaped us, not just into survivors, but into softer, deeper, wiser souls. It is through the crushing of the olive that oil is released, through the breaking of the ground that seeds take root, and through the breaking of the heart that compassion is born. I believe with everything in me that pain, when placed in the hands of God, becomes something powerful, something sacred. It becomes the very place where healing begins, not just for us, but through us, for others. Because here's the mystery. People are not drawn to our perfection. They're drawn to our humanity. They don't connect with the polished image, the curated version of ourselves we try to present to the world. They connect with the real, the raw, the vulnerable, the broken open. And when someone looks into your eyes and sees not just strength, but wounded strength, that quiet kind of courage that's been through the fire and still sings, they begin to believe that healing is possible for them too. Pain has a way of expanding the soul. It deepens our empathy. It tunes our ears to the silent suffering of others. It softens the hard places in us. It reminds us that we were never meant to walk this road alone, and that none of us are exempt from the ache of being human. But oh, what a beautiful thing it is to know that we are not left alone in that ache. There is a hand that holds us in the night, a light that still flickers when everything else has gone dark, a grace that doesn't just patch up the cracks, it fills them with gold. So if you are here tonight carrying pain, visible or hidden, know this: you are not broken beyond repair, you are not disqualified, you are not alone. Your scars are not a sign of your defeat, they are the places where the light got in. They are proof that you endured, that you stayed, that you continued on when you had every reason to quit. And that, my friend, is not brokenness. That is sacred strength. Because in the hands of eternity, what once felt like ruin becomes the very evidence that you were always unbroken. Have you ever stood beneath a night sky, far from the city lights, and just looked up? Thousands of stars stretched across the heavens like a canvas of light. Some barely flickering, some burning bright. And if you stood there long enough, you'd feel it. A quiet knowing deep in your chest that you're part of something vast, something beautiful, something far bigger than yourself. You see, there's a deep truth hidden in the fabric of creation. Nothing stands alone. Not one star, not one soul. Just like those stars, each of us is set in place intentionally, precisely, as part of a greater constellation. We weren't thrown here by accident. We were placed. And not just placed, but purposed. We live in a world that loves independence. We're told to stand on our own, build our own name, write our own story. But if we're honest, that kind of isolation can feel hollow, because deep down we were never meant to walk this road alone. We were meant to be connected to one another and to the divine. There is a sacred web that binds us all, a hidden architecture of lives touching lives, pain shaping compassion, joy echoing from one heart into another. When you show kindness, it doesn't end with the one who receives it. It ripples outward, unseen but never unfelt. When you survive something hard, when you choose love in the middle of loss, when you forgive when it's hardest, you send a wave into the world, and that wave matters. You may not see where it lands, but it moves something. And isn't that like the hand of God? Always working, always weaving, always placing one life next to another like threads in a tapestry. If you look too close, all you see are knots and tangles, but step back and a pattern begins to emerge. A story is being told, one that couldn't be written without you. You matter, not only because you exist, but because others exist through you. Your story has touched stories you'll never fully know. The smile you gave, the word you spoke, the prayer you whispered, those things live on in ways that transcend time. You're not a solitary note. You're part of a symphony. Even your pain has a place in this design. Sometimes it's our sorrow that opens the door for someone else's healing. Sometimes it's our struggle that becomes the bridge for someone else to find their strength. Nothing is wasted. Not even the moments we wish had never happened. In the hands of a creator who sees the whole picture, even the shadows have purpose. Even the silence has weight. And if all of this is true, if we are all part of a great unfolding masterpiece, then how we live matters. Not because we need to prove our worth, but because we are already woven into something holy. Every decision, every act of love, every moment of faith, it matters more than we can imagine. Not because it changes everything, but because it changes something. And that something connects to everything else. You, dear friend, are not drifting through this world. You are not a speck lost in the dark. You are a light placed exactly where you are for a reason. Your life fits into the design in a way no one else's can. You are a thread in the eternal pattern, a note in the divine song, a soul known and needed. And when we begin to see ourselves this way, not as scattered stars, but as constellations, we realize that we were never alone, because the same God who named the stars has never once forgotten your name. We've all had those moments when we've prayed with everything in us, when we've waited and waited and waited, and still the answer didn't come the way we thought it would. Maybe it didn't come at all. Maybe the door stayed closed. Maybe the healing didn't happen, or the opportunity passed by, or the silence just went on longer than we thought we could bear. It's in those seasons that we start to ask the quiet questions. Why not now? Why not me? Has God forgotten me? And that kind of waiting can feel like a wilderness, where the days blend into each other and hope feels like a flickering candle in a storm. But I want to tell you tonight, with everything in me, delay is not denial. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean God isn't moving. Just because you don't have the answer doesn't mean there isn't one. And just because the timing feels wrong doesn't mean it isn't right. There is a rhythm to the way heaven moves, an eternal pace that doesn't bow to our clocks or calendars. We live in a world that wants everything instantly. We want fast breakthroughs, quick solutions, and immediate results. But God, in His wisdom, often chooses to take His time, not because He's distant, not because He's indifferent, but because He's preparing something deeper than we're asking for. A seed doesn't sprout the moment it touches the soil. A child isn't born the moment life begins. And promises, real, lasting promises, take time to grow roots before they bear fruit. What feels like waiting is often the sacred work of God beneath the surface, doing what only He can do. Maybe you've been asking for something and all you've heard is silence. I understand that kind of ache. But let me ask you gently, what if the silence isn't a sign that God is absent? What if it's the quiet before the door opens? What if it's the space where your faith is being strengthened, not to get what you want, but to become who you're meant to be? You see, time in the waiting room of God is never wasted. It's where we learn to trust without conditions, to believe without evidence, to rest without answers. And in that place, something sacred happens. We begin to surrender, not out of defeat, but out of deep trust. We loosen our grip and open our hands. We stop chasing outcomes and we start chasing presence. Because the truth is, we often think we're waiting for something, but more often, God is using the wait to shape us, to prepare our hearts, to deepen our roots, to ready us for blessings that won't break us when they come. Timing is not just about when, it's about who will be when it arrives. I've known people who thought they missed their moment, who believed it was too late for them. And yet, years later, they walked through doors they didn't even know were being built just for them. Why? Because God doesn't rush. He doesn't need to. He sees the whole picture, and He knows when the music should rise and when it should pause. He knows the right time, not just a good time, but the right time for your story to shift. So tonight, if you're tired of waiting, if you're tempted to give up, if you're starting to wonder if it's all for nothing, I want you to hold on a little longer. Trust that the composer hasn't forgotten the next note. Trust that the movement of your life is still unfolding exactly as it should. Because the hands that hold eternity are never late. And when it's time, when it's truly time, not one force on earth will be able to stop what God has set in motion for you. And when it comes, it will be worth every moment you spent in the quiet. It's a noisy world we're living in. Everything around us seems to shout, our phones, our headlines, our responsibilities. The noise is constant. We're bombarded with voices telling us who we should be, what we should want, how we should live. And in the middle of it all, something inside of us begins to long for quiet. Not just the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. But silence can be a strange place, can't it? Especially when we're hurting or uncertain. In the quiet, we start to wrestle with our thoughts. We feel the weight of our questions. And sometimes, when life grows still, we wonder if God is still speaking. We wonder if He's left the room or if He hears us at all. But I believe with all my heart that it's in the silence, precisely there, that the voice of God often speaks the loudest. Not through thunder, not always through signs or wonders, but through that still, small voice that whispers to the soul. You see, when everything is stripped away, when the crowd fades and the world grows quiet, what's left is something real. And in that space, if we're listening, we begin to hear not just a voice, but the voice. The one that has always been there. The one that speaks not just to your ears, but to your spirit. The voice that reminds you who you are, even when everything else is trying to tell you otherwise. Who you are. It's in the silence that we come face to face with our true selves. Not who we pretend to be, not the version we show to the world, but the soul beneath the surface. And there, God doesn't meet us with condemnation. He meets us with compassion. He doesn't rush us. He sits with us. He waits for us to stop striving long enough to hear Him again. Some of you may be walking through a season where things feel painfully quiet. The miracles you were praying for haven't arrived. The answers you hoped for are nowhere to be found. And yet I want to gently ask you tonight, what if the silence is not an absence but an invitation? What if God is not punishing you with silence but preparing you through it? What if this stillness is the sacred soil where your roots grow deeper, where your heart learns to lean not on feelings but on faith? You see, real strength isn't forged in the spotlight. It's formed in the quiet hours, the unseen moments, the nights when you decide to keep going, even when you hear nothing. That's when faith becomes more than a word. That's when it becomes a lifeline. I believe some of the most powerful moments in our lives come not when God does something loud, but when He teaches us to recognize Him in the quiet, in the peace that makes no sense, in the comfort that arrives without explanation, in the stillness that steadies your soul even when the world feels like it's falling apart. And when you begin to recognize His voice in the silence, you stop panicking when the noise disappears. You stop fearing the stillness because you know He's still speaking. He always has been, and He always will be. So if you find yourself in a season where everything's quiet, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't run from it. Step into it. Listen closely. God may be saying more in this moment than you've ever heard before, because the voice that shaped the stars still whispers in the quiet, and it calls you by name. There comes a moment in every journey when you stop and look back, not just at the path behind you, but at who you've become along the way. The trials you never asked for, the valleys you walked through, the mountains you didn't think you'd climb, somehow they shaped you. Not into someone perfect or polished, but into someone real, someone deeper, softer, stronger, and maybe someone unbroken. You see, we often think the purpose of life is to avoid the hard things, to dodge the sorrow, the failure, the heartbreak. But the truth is, it's through those very things that we're shaped into people who can carry light into a dark world. People who understand grace not as an idea, but as a lifeline. People whose strength isn't loud, but lasting. And if you're still here, still standing, still believing, still showing up, you're living proof that brokenness is not the end of the story. In fact, it may be the beginning of something sacred, because the goal was never perfection, it was transformation. You were never meant to be untouched by life, you were meant to be refined by it. And in the hands of a God who sees the whole picture, even what the world calls weakness becomes a window through which others can see His strength. I've seen it again and again. People who've walked through fire and come out with eyes that see more clearly, hearts that love more freely, not because they escaped pain, but because they allowed it to shape them into vessels of compassion. And that's the mystery, isn't it? That the things which threatened to break us became the very things that built us. That's the thread that runs through every story we've shared tonight. The divine thread that connects your waiting, your silence, your sorrow, your growth. All of it is being used. All of it is being redeemed. Not one tear wasted. Not one prayer unheard. Not one quiet act of faith forgotten. There's a passage in Scripture that says we are being changed from glory to glory. Now that doesn't mean from success to success. It means from one layer of grace to the next, through trial, through trust, through time. It means your life isn't just something happening to you. It's something being crafted by a loving hand for a divine purpose. You are not here by accident. Your life, your presence, your story, it matters more than you know. And the places where you thought you had nothing left to give, those may be the very places where God chooses to pour out the most light through you. We talk a lot about calling, about destiny, about purpose. But I believe your greatest calling isn't something you chase, it's something you become. As you live, as you love, as you suffer, as you heal, you are becoming a living testimony of what it means to be unbroken, not untouched, not unscarred, but whole, because grace held you together when nothing else could. You may not have the answers. You may still carry questions, but Hear me when I say, your story is still unfolding. The author hasn't stopped writing, and if you could see what he sees, you'd never doubt your place in the grand design. So don't count yourself out. Don't believe the lie that says you've missed your moment or that your pain disqualifies you. Because the very fact that you're here means your story still carries weight. Your life still speaks. And this world still needs what only you can give. Because in the hands of the eternal, your life is not a tale of what was lost, but a living witness of what was never truly broken.